Ah, there you are. Come, sit down. Ignore the blood. I've been doing some experiments. Haven't got around to cleaning it up yet. But do you want to know something? See, I've been a kindred for so long now that I have forgotten what it was like to be a mortal. I have vague memories and recollections, but the feeling of being powerless, I want to say, is gone to me. The feeling of the sun caressing your own skin is all but gone from my mind. My mother tongue is dead now. The language I speak is not that of my home, and the world I live in is nothing like the one I remember. This will happen to all of us eventually. The world changes and shifts in ways we cannot imagine. Our homes become alien to us. But what does become more known to us, more than anything, is our powers, our nature. The supernatural elements of our world are almost unchanging with the time. Perfect for beings like us. The reason I speak of this, the reason I bring up the topic of our fading humanity, is because the group I wish to speak of will never feel this. They are more human than they are kindred. In fact, it is actually easier for them to become mortal again than it is a kindred proper. Something that is impossible for us is a real option for them. Or, well, some of them. See, today I wish to speak of the Thinbloods, the Duskborn, or the Heralds of the End Times, or whatever other name you have heard them been given. I have mentioned them a few times now, but I will ignore the more spiritual superstitions until my history section. For now, I wish to share what I have so recently learned about them. See, I'm quite privy to run experiments on things that strike my fancy, and my ones that I've done on the Thinblooded have been remarkably successful. So, to start, what actually makes one a Thinblood? It's quite simple, actually. It is when one's blood is so weak and high in generation that they are almost an in-between of a normal kindred and a mortal. This is why they have more in common with each other than they do their primogenitor clan. Simply because the blood is so thin, almost none of them can manifest any of their powers or use their disciplines in a reliable way. They don't even manifest any of their clan's traits. For all intents and purposes, they are not the clan they originated from, but something new entirely. Now, when this kicks in is more of a case-by-case basis. Some unfortunate 12th generations have become Thinbloods, while some have been lucky enough to make it all the way to the 15th before their blood has weakened to this point. I'm almost certain that the potency of one's sire's blood is what leads to some avoiding this fate for as long as possible. But what is a certainty is that eventually, every single bloodline will thin like this. Regardless, those who are Thinbloods are quite easy to notice, simply due to the lack of their clan traits, and in many cases after, their lacking of general vampiric traits at all. But this can be as much of a blessing as it is a curse. See, while they are weak and everyone hates them and wants them naught but dead, they can do things we can't, such as eat and fully digest food, making it go through their well, how mortals do it. They can actually pump blood without thinking about it, as a background process, again like mortals. Or in some incredible circumstances, they can step out into the sunlight. They can walk amongst the living. And while it is true they cannot use all or even most of their vampiric powers that they do possess, that power alone is breathtaking. The sheer amount of traits they can manifest, both positive and negative, is staggering. Truly, I do not think I could list them all, but I will briefly go over some of my favorites. For example, some of them are so bad at healing that their body will visibly decay like a normal corpse. It cannot keep up with the natural rate of wear and tear. So the only way to stave this off is by feeding. Another similar one, they can't heal like us at all, but do so as the mortals do, having to rest and tend to their wounds instead of rousing the blood. And lastly, and this one makes me chuckle, some never develop fangs, meaning they cannot even bite to feed off their prey and have to cut at them in some other way, typically with a knife. But the positive traits are truly incredible. As I said before, they can eat properly, appear just like a mortal with no effort, and some can even walk out into the sunlight with no major ill effect. Some can make blood bonds like we can, and some can even embrace another fin. With this, it has a remarkable effect. Their childer is exactly as powerful as they were when they were first embraced, meaning for all things that matter, their generation is the exact same. They embrace someone at the same level that they are. This is the thing I truly wish to experiment on next. If we can somehow replicate this effect, that any 7th generation could make another 7th generation, I feel like that would be most beneficial. I will get to it, but I've unfortunately ran out of jars, and, well, let's say without them things get a bit too messy, so I'm going to wait till those are replenished. Regardless, the last fascinating merit that many Thinbloods can do is known as Thinblood alchemy, and this is remarkable, to the point where it almost makes up for all their shortcomings, but I'll get into all they can do with that in a bit later. But now I have to change the topic somewhat, for up until this point I have discussed them in a more scientific nature. But you should know by now that we are not creatures of science, but ones of magic and gods. For even if you are not religious or don't follow any specific denominations, you cannot deny that there is something to us that will always be supernatural. See, any time I've talked about the Thinbloods before, it's always been through the more superstitious lens, since most of our kind follows that sort of thing, and for very good reason. You see, many young kindred tend to act as if they are the first to think in certain ways, that the world is just far more clear to them than it is anyone else before them, that they are on the right track of history, following an endless progression in the right direction. But they are wrong. There is nothing about their ideals that is unique to them, and in fact, they are more like the ones that came before them, the more like the ones that they despise than they're afraid to even notice. The reason most elders such as myself no longer think this way is because the only ones who abandon these ideals are the only ones still alive. Those who kept to them died horrifically, or became the biggest monsters you could ever imagine. You see, that's the thing about ideology. If you only stick to one, if you only keep one world view, you will inevitably become a monster, viewing all of those outside of it as evil, and in so doing, justifiable in any means of destruction. A balance, as in all things, is what is needed for the world to function. But you see, my ramblings do have a point, and it is linked to what I believe the ultimate fate of the Thinbloods will be. For I see two realistic outcomes: complete eradication or total domination. When a new age comes in, it always ends the old, but with an air of sin it is done. See, I've been walking around it for so long now that I might as well rip it on. The Book of Nod speaks of the Thinbloods, this most sacred text of our kind, and it is not fond of them. I will now quote the book directly: "And you will know these last times by the time of thin blood, which will mark vampires that cannot beget. You will know them by the clanless, who will come to rule. You will know them by the wild ones, who will hunt us even in the strongest city. You will know them by the awakening of some of the eldest. The crone will awaken and consume all. You will know these times, for a black hand will rise up and choke all that oppose it, and those who eat's heart's blood will flourish, and kindred will crowd each to his own, and vitae will be as rare as diamonds." End quote. Another passage later on reads as follows: "There will come a time when the curse of one above will not be tolerated further, when the lineage of Cain will end, when the blood of Cain will be weak, and there will be no embracing from these children, for their blood will run like water, and the potence in it will wither then. You will know this time, that Gehenna will soon be upon you. End quote. Gehenna being the end of the world, for us at least, an apocalyptic event that none are going to survive. But it's all true. This book is accurate about everything it touches, but it is misleading and cryptic beyond belief. You need to remember that back then some were more than powerful enough to actually see the future perfectly, and try to express it in the best way they could with their limited world knowledge. As for the other parts, well, the crone could be Lilith or any other powerful figure such as her. The Black Hand is a translation of an existing faction of Sabbat, one that is becoming quite powerful. A lot of people try to speak for the Thinbloods, viewing them as a persecuted group, and in which they are, all things considered. Even some elders have swapped sides now, wanting to help them, hoping that they might be spared in an upcoming war. But a revolution never keeps its turncoats, nor half its own at that rate. And if you believe a war is to come, as do I, the book makes it pretty clear who's going to win it. The second verse intrigues me though. It seems to me that they are not the source of the end times, but merely the first sign of its arrival. This supposed war between us and them will be inconsequential, I feel, and if I had to gamble on it, probably region-specific. See, the Thinbloods aren't a new phenomenon. They have always existed throughout all of our history. Many have tried to make as many kindred as possible, as quickly as possible, and they are always the result. The difference now is the sheer number of them. Whereas before 3 or 4 would wither off and die, now there is enough of them to band together and share things. This is partly the reason I've only now started to learn so much about their nature, since they themselves have helped me in my experiments. See, before, any unfortunate soul who would become a Thinblood would have no idea what they were, nor anyone to teach them or help them. If they were lucky, they would have been killed early on. But now they have an opportunity to grow and to learn more about their situation and their nature. For example, I hinted at this earlier, but didn't you know that some can become mortal again? See, for them, there are only really 2 ways out of this middle ground. The most clear is to commit the dreaded act of diablerie, where, interestingly enough, they will become the exact generation of the one they devour and fully become that clan, ignoring where they came from. But the other way is for them to kill the ones that turned them, to kill the true kindred who embraced them. They will supposedly turn back into a mortal. But there's a catch to this, however. Like all parts of their nature, this is incredibly inconsistent as well. Some have killed their sire and had nothing happen. Some have done so and had all the Thinbloods turned by them become human again. And some have killed them, but only the one who dealt the blow turned back. How and why does this happen? It's pure magic at the end of the day, unexplainable in a way. Where it gets confusing is when you start to talk about the Thinbloods that embraced more Thinbloods. For I don't know a single case where they could become mortal again. But I also wouldn't be surprised if I was wrong in this endeavor. I would love to experiment on this more, but the immorality of these tests would not be worth the results, I fear. But I would gladly pay for some examples and volunteers, that's for sure. But I think it is time to talk about the few powers they actually do possess that are to be envious of. Not just the sunlight or other traits, but their abilities to quickly learn a discipline temporarily, and their alchemy. See, they can actually use some disciplines for a brief moment. If they feed on a certain type of blood, one which resonance matches a discipline, they can have a power from it until they feed again, or their body starts to run out of what little vitae they have. And if it's a particularly strong resonance, they might get 2. This trait is bizarre to me, something I feel could be harnessed and is impressive, but not as much as what their alchemy can do. Now then, their alchemy can only truly be practiced by them, Something about their blood unlocks special properties in the ingredients that ours do not. Perhaps our potency overpowers any other effect, which implies that we could somehow dilute our own blood to repeat these effects. I have, however, never heard of this happening, and my experiments have been less than fruitful. See, what they do with this alchemy is, well, essentially they make potions, although you can make them in a few bizarre methods. While many use these with the usual bottles and lab experiments you could imagine, some make these elixirs within their own bodies, or sometimes in the bodies of mortals, using syringes to extract them. Regardless of their methodology, you will always get the same effect once it is fully used. And I will now list some of the things they can do. Well, like with everything, it starts small and simple, like creating a mist of fog that fully follows a target, evading them of unwanted eyes, and even a limited form of telekinesis, allowing someone to move objects with their mind alone. They can even create a concoction that any kindred can drink to sustain them as if they were feeding. Even kindred who have limited palates, like the Ventru, or ones that usually have to eat their prey, can use this. But one of the more extreme examples is their ability to fly, or even wake any kindred from torpor. That's any kindred, of any age, generation, or power. Now, not all of them can use these powers and this alchemy. There seems to be traits that only some of them possess, like many of their other benefits. But the potential of this alchemy is unbelievable to me. You can see why some are so afraid of what they can do. This, combined with the fact that some of them can go out during the day, well, it results in the fears of wars between us being quite reasonable. But if we could, in some way, harness these powers, it would give us such incredible opportunities. But that will probably never happen, due to the fears that both sides have, and rightfully so. But I have a plan, and it is the reason for all my experiments. See, despite all of their benefits, being a Thinblood is awful. You're probably better off being but a ghoul. But these powers must be harnessable. There has to be a way to do it, even if I am to hire 1,000 Thinbloods in order to make it work. There needs to be a way to combine our powers, to make Thinbloods an elevated form of us, or to give us their unique properties. If war between us is inevitable, why not merge us into one being? At least, that's my theory. I've had no progress in it in any way that matters. But that will have to be for another night, as will anything for a while. I'm tired. I'm very, very tired. The Thinbloods are young, they are new and unknown, and for that reason people are afraid of them. But I find myself unable to be moved in such a way. Perhaps my age is catching up to me, perhaps I don't care anymore, my fear not matching what it should be. Or maybe something else is at play. Many kindred of my generation have gone missing of recent. And while many have blamed it on the Thinbloods, I don't know. All I know is that I'm tired. That will be all for tonight. I will see you another time. Thank you for coming, though. Thank you for listening to my tales. I'm the Ashspawn. Feel free to leave a like, comment, or subscribe. It would really mean a lot to me. But, till next we meet, fellow traveler. Have a good day.